expire. The gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Ivey.
Let me say that this has been timely, actually. So the gentleman from New Jersey and the chairman have made a number of comments. I want to try and deal with them in categories. I would need more than 5 minutes to correct all the misstatements that were made. But just broadly speaking, on the one hand, we've got parties who have shown how to comply with subpoenas, and they're the ones testifying in front of us today. Department of Education's done a rolling production, 1,000 pages. Department of Justice, just under 500. The term rolling production is standard in not only congressional investigations, but in the federal courts. And the type of conduct that was done by the Department of Justice, which is to reach out to the people who sent the subpoena and try and engage in a conversation. What are you looking for? How do we want to try and have a discussion about how to comply. Not only is that standard practice in federal courts and in Congress, by the way, at least I was in the Whitewater hearing, so going back, what is that, 25, 30 years. We were doing it then, and I know there's a memo in the Department of Justice about the accommodation provision that dates back to 2000. And in federal court, if the parties had to refuse to respond like the Republicans did for civil or criminal discovery or subpoena responses, a judge might impose sanctions, including attorney's fees. I would say that your conduct's been great, the Republican committee staff, not so great. And then with respect to my colleague from New Jersey's comments about Donald Trump and the chairman's response about Mr. Jordan, I think that's why they're on the opposite side of our two witnesses here today, because they refuse to comply. Donald Trump, even worse than just refusing to comply, pretended to comply and actually made false statements about complying. That's under investigation now. We'll let that go forward with the Department of Justice. But as is standard practice with the Department of Justice, if you lie about producing documents, they go get them. They don't sit there and let you lie and just move on. They go get the documents, and that's exactly what they did there. And you know that's not surprising or targeting Republicans because they treated Pence the same way they treated Biden. You got voluntary compliance by the Biden and Pence. They didn't go into their houses because they were providing the documents. And I think that's the same issue that arises with respect to the points Congressman Swalwell was making about Chairman Jordan. There were others as well who refused to comply. The Speaker is another one, Congressman Perry. Multiple people received subpoenas from the January 6th committee, refused to comply with them, made no attempts to figure out how to comply. In fact, Chairman Jordan sent a letter back. Not only was he not going to comply, but he said he wants all the materials referencing him in the select committee's possession and all internal legal analysis related to the constitutionality of member subpoenas. Now imagine if every time this committee sent out a subpoena, they got an answer back from the target demanding information about the investigation that they're conducting. I guess you could have done that as the Department of Justice, but instead of doing that in Department of Education, you complied. You turned over documents to the best you could discern what they were asking for, and you did it in a timely manner. You said it was a rolling production. I think what'd you get it, like 30, 45 days ago, something like that? So I would think under most circumstances, it looks like a reasonable effort to comply and actual compliance actually as well. So I actually commend you for what you've done there. And I join Congressman Swalwell in raising concerns about those who haven't complied with producing subpoenas, getting up on the high horse and complaining about people who are actually complying with the subpoenas that they're issuing now. I've got a couple other things I want to raise and that go to the direct issue with respect to the subject matter of the subpoenas. I'm running out of time, but I'll come back and deal with that on the next round. But I do want to say this too. The chairman raised heavy redactions as a concern. That's another point where I would think there'd be conversations between the majority staff and the Department of Justice. What did you redact? Why did you do it? And they can make a decision about it, but they have to respond to your answers and your information in order for that dialogue to move forward. And the comment about longstanding requests that the chairman made, I think ignores the fact that the new Congress just started a few weeks ago. So again, I commend you on the work that you've done in trying to comply with these requests. I apologize to you for being in the crosshairs of an obviously politicized effort to attack the Biden administration and to try and score political points when we've got real work we could be doing on behalf of the American people. I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. I think it's important to clarify that the chairman of the full committee never indicated that he would not comply, and that he responded.
Did he comply?
And that he responded, and that he was awaiting further statements from Chairman
Still
Thompson.
waiting.
As I recall, the subpoena for the president was withdrawn.
Would the gentleman yield?
The gentleman from Texas is recognized, Mr. Moran.
Thank you.
Point of order. If the chairman's going to make comments out of order, he should at least give us a chance to respond to them.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.